Very thrilled to have with me a man we've had before, and actually, he's a local boy, Hopkins, Minnesota. Aaron Brown, you remember him from CNN. You remember him from a whole series of things. Well, now what he's doing with Wide Angle. Again, Aaron, thanks for joining the program.
Oh, Jack, it's nice to be back with you, and it's good to be back in Twin Cities. I was just there actually doing an event not long ago. It looked great. It's always nice to be back, one way or the other.
You know, I think about the work that you did when you were at CNN, places you've been, World News Tonight, as an anchor, Good Morning America, and now I look at where you are with Wide Angle. I think back to when I was in Iraq, and I remember looking up at the Al Rashid Hotel and what CNN was during the first Gulf War. And then I look at where CNN is right now, where media is right now, and I wonder, is this maybe the best job in America where you are?
I kind of think it might be, honestly. I mean, I've said a bunch lately when asked. I feel like God dropped one in my lap here. It's not that I have bad feelings about anything that I've done. I just find that at 59, the kind of work I want to do is best done before a PBS audience. It's an audience that has and demands, honestly, that has an interest in and demands that we do important work well, meaningful work well, and literally has an equity interest in it, buys shares in PBS all the time. And so for me, at this point in my life, given where I've been, what I've done, this is a great opportunity, and it's a wonder. If you work in this business as you do and you're in front of the microphone, in front of the camera, you know how important the staff is in everything you do and how much credit you get for their good work. That is really true in this case. The Wide Angle staff is young and smart and idealistic and not yet beaten down by the realities of contemporary television. And I wrote them a note because we launched today, the season launches today, and I said, you reminded me of all the reasons I got into this in the first place, to do good stories, to do them well, because that's what we ought to do regardless, to serve the audience. And I needed the reminder, and it's just been a wonderful, I'm sorry to go on like this, a wonderful, healthy experience for me to work with them.
Hasn't been that long since I was back from Darfur, and I remember looking into the faces of small children, and those faces won't go away in my mind. And yet, at the same time, there is that contrast from some in the media who suggest, no, that's not the kind of stuff we need to do. We need to do something else. How is it that you convince people that you're doing the right thing in the right way for the right audience?
Well, that's an interesting thing. One of the things I believe about, and you actually, as I go back in my mind, the conversation we had the last time I was in the studio with you, we talked about viewers make choices. It's not just broadcasters or journalists who make choices. Viewers make choices. And the PBS audience, and maybe because I'm me and people know me from other places, we'll bring a few more people into the tent, make a choice about the kind of media they want. And they want serious stuff done well. And I'm not somebody, as you know, who says to people, eat your vegetables. You can only have Brussels sprouts today. You can only have serious and important stuff today. I don't think that works, so there's no point in doing it. But I do think that it's essential for there to be, on the spectrum of American journalism, which is a very broad spectrum these days, serious work done in serious ways, and about global issues, because we live in a global world. Sometimes these issues are directly connected to our lives. We're going to Iraq, or rather to Jordan, to do a piece, I believe Friday, to do a piece on Iraqi refugees. There's an American interest there. There may arguably be an American responsibility there, but I'll leave that debate for others. There's an interest there. But sometimes the interest is simply moral. We have a moral obligation as citizens of the world to care about certain things. What goes on in Burma, we have a responsibility to care about. What goes on in Darfur, we have a responsibility to care about. We say all the time, never again. But the truth is, the never agains happen again. And we know about them now, and we don't do enough to stop them. And hopefully in bringing that stuff to your audience, which I think is terrific. The work that we're putting on the air tonight will help motivate people to do more than wear a T-shirt. Not that wearing a T-shirt doesn't matter, but it's just a starting point. It's not an end point.
And yet at the same time, we think of some of the recent situations where the polls suggest that Americans are most interested in energy right now. That's what they want to know about. And they're looking at gas prices, and they don't want to talk about those other things. Iraq has dropped off the map completely.
Yeah.
How do you say eat your Brussels sprouts? I mean, isn't that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, it is to some degree. And the best answer I can give you is to dip the Brussels sprouts in chocolate. The challenge is, I think, and it's more complicated, honestly, with international affairs, including the war, honestly, is to make sure that the pieces you produce are good television, that they're compelling stories, that they have great characters. In the case of Darfur, one of the things you have to avoid, I believe, because I don't think people can deal with it. You can't talk in hundreds of thousands and millions. You have to. Stories are best told through a character or two. Nick Kristof talks about, Nick has done extraordinary work in Darfur as a columnist for the New York Times, wrote a piece once called The Darfur Puppy, that if somehow you could symbolize the tragedy of Darfur through one character, in the example he was giving, through a lost puppy, then you can get people to care. But when you talk about millions or hundreds of thousands, it's just too much for people, and I get that. And I think one of the things the piece tonight does well, and in other ways, with different stories, the pieces throughout the series do well, is take the big issue and tell it through individuals' eyes. And in that way, I think it's easier for audiences to eat their vegetables.
Aaron Brown is my guest. Again, you've seen him on CNN's Newsnight, ABC World News Tonight, but he is the new anchor of Wide Angle. When we come back, Aaron, let's talk more about your career, about where you have been, where you're going, what you're hoping to accomplish now